Joining us now, well, you can call her a seer, you can call her a fortune teller, but she predicted this. Sidney Powell, the author of one of the best books ever written on the Justice Department called License to Lie. And we have Sidney Powell on. She's on about 3 times a month when she can make it on the John Frederick Show. And the other, it's about 4 months ago, she said, the only answer to this whole FISA debacle is to declassify the documents and declassify the application and see what was in there. And then, everybody will be able to tell that's the only thing for us to get to the bottom of this. And, of course, now all the Democrats who you think would be for transparency and wanting the American people to see what happened, they're all up in a tizzy over it, including Virginia Senator Mark Warner, who said that it's compromising intel gathering information positions and could compromise agents and things like that. But this is about a FISA application and whether or not the fake phony dossier was in there. Joining us now, without further ado, Sidney Powell. Hey, Sidney, great to have you with us.
Thanks, John. Great to be with you.
Go to licensetolie.com. This is a book you got to read. I know I say it all the time, but first of all, you're going to get it, and then you're going to open up the first chapter, and then you're not going to be able to put it down, and then it's going to make the hair on your back stand up or the hair on your head. All 5 of mine stood up. It's a must-read. Go to licensetolie.com. So let's get to the president declassifying the FISA application, which you called for 4 months ago.
At least, yeah. No, I'm really glad he did that. And for anybody to complain about that part in particular is absurd because James Wolfe leaked the entire FISA application to the New York Times. So it's had it for ages. I mean, from the time it first came out. It's ridiculous for anybody to be complaining about it being given to the American people now when the old gray mayor has had it forever.
But they never printed it. Why?
No, because it's not favorable to their view of what they want to say happened.
So they just stuck in the drawer.
Yeah.
So my question is, to simply release the application is going to prove one way or the other whether or not it was a legitimate application by the Department of Justice to spy on an American who was volunteering for a political campaign. And what I was saying all day is if the application proves that this was the right thing to do and the judge had legitimate cause to not reject it, then everybody should be happy because they should have then confidence in their judicial system and the FBI and everything else. So you would think that if it was favorable that everybody would be happy. I would be happy. I would be like, okay, I feel better about, I was opposed to the Patriot Act and I am suspect of the whole thing. I don't like the FISA court. I don't like any of it, but at least I would be satisfied that a judge had a reasonable opportunity to sign that warrant. So what are they afraid of?
Well, obviously, it's not favorable to their narrative. It's going to completely undercut it and validate what we have been saying all along, and that is that the whole thing was literally made up. The reason the FBI and DOJ never did anything to verify it was because they knew it was made up. They helped make it up. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing is just a big lie.
So what happens now? When will it come out? Walk us through how this works. Walk us through the
Well, I would think process. It would be out within the next week. Because,
and then what happens?
I mean, they've known the president was likely to do this for a long time. It's just a matter of unredacting 20 pages, roughly, and that shouldn't take more than 30 minutes by whoever's doing it. But, given the fact it's the government and people are going to complain and grouse and slow walk it, I would say it. We could get it by Friday, or we could get it next week.
And so, what if the Department of Justice? What if Rosenstein decides to stall on it? What happens?
I think he'd get fired.
As he should
be
right?
fired anyway.
Right.
He should be fired for obstructing justice himself. He should be fired for his claim that he didn't even read the FISA application. He was just briefed on it, according to what he testified to Congress. That's absolutely outrageous. And, of course, Dana Boente, who's general counsel of the FBI now, was signed the third application. I can't believe he's over there. I mean, we got people at the head of both of the most powerful injustice machines in the country who sign these phony FISA applications.
It's a very scary thing that we've got going on. I just want to know what happened, right? Because I was opposed to the Patriot Act, which means I don't want FISA courts, the whole thing. But here's the other thing, Sidney, and I just want to get your take on it. I'll move on. So we understand now that the first application for surveillance, for spy surveillance on Carter Page, was brought to a FISA judge who we don't know. That's why it's a secret judge. And that judge said no. And only 2% of FISA requests are denied. So 98% are just accepted. Under 2%, I think I read. I don't know what that is. Something between 1% and 2%. Under 2% are rejected. This one was actually rejected. Like a FISA judge said, no, I don't have enough information. But then the judge said, I'll leave the door open if you come back with more. And so then, allegedly, they came back with a dossier as their core evidence and then an article in a Yahoo News blog. And that was their evidence to go back to the judge with, who then signed it. And then the question is, did the judge know that this information came from an Oppo research dossier? And if they didn't, then this judge was kind of, could you call it deceived or fooled or wool pulled over his eyes? What do you think?
Yeah, we already know it didn't. They didn't disclose to the court that it came from the Oppo research dossier. We know that from the information that they put out previously.
So what does this mean? What will happen?
It means that the FISA judges didn't do their job. It means that people in the Department of Justice literally conspired to lie to a court and target an American citizen in a counter-surveillance operation that wasn't the least bit valid. Carter Page wasn't even working for the Trump campaign when they actually got the warrant. He had left it. But it enabled them. I think they had to do it because they were already conducting illegal surveillance of the Trump campaign. Comey's FBI gave unlimited, unsupervised access to the entire NSA database to 3 private contractors. I bet my Bippy one of those was Fusion GPS, and Nellie Orr was mining that database for anything they wanted on any of the opposition candidates. It started back in 2015, and according to the decision of the FISA court that we also need to see unredacted because the names of the private contractors are in it, but currently they're redacted. So I hope that's on the list of things we're going to get. I tweeted Sidney Powell, the number one, and I tweeted weeks ago a list of 10 things that we need to see unredacted. And so far, the president is giving us about half of what I've tweeted.
Well, let's just start there and see what happens. We're with Sidney Powell. She's the author of the bestseller, Licensed to Lie. You can buy it at licensedtolie.com. You can't buy it in Amazon because they don't want you to read it because that's how serious a book this is. So and bookstores have pulled it off their shelves. They don't want you to read it either. So go to licensedtolie.com, buy it, and buy it now. Sidney, let's get to...
Good news, John. I do have some good news on that front. I have found a distributor who is going to make it available in bookstores nationwide, at least the paperback copy, within a few weeks.
Good. Who's the distributor?
Midpoint.
Good for you. So it'll be available.
So you can go and pre-order it now through any of the stores.
Good deal.
Or order it and get it now through licensedtolie.com.
Or you want to get the hard copy like I do, and you want to be able to stand it up on your bookshelf.
Yeah, and I'm almost out of first edition hard copy. I'm going to have to reprint.
And the jacket looks really neat. So I like the hard copy. I like the jacket. The next time I see you, I got to get you to sign it, right? I forgot that the last time.
Definitely.
Let's get to Judge Kavanaugh and Dr. Ford. I really thought the president and Senator Grassley handled this the right way. They said, look, we want to hear your story, Dr. Ford. You should be heard. Come to our committee. We're reserving Monday. You can do it in public. You can do it in private. You can do it with cameras. You can do it without cameras. You can do it whichever you're most comfortable with. We want to hear what happened. We want your story out. And then we'll get Judge Kavanaugh. We'll ask him the questions based on what your story is. And we'll go from there, right? Makes sense. First, Dr. Ford's lawyer says she'll come. Now she's saying, no, I'm not going to come do an FBI investigation, which means months of stall. Of course, they can't do an investigation because, number one, it's not their jurisdiction. Number two, it's 37 years ago. Number three, what are they going to investigate? There's nothing to investigate but her memory, which you can do at the hearing. What say you?
Well, I tweeted about that last night, too. I've got a list of 10 points on it. And, yeah, I mean, President Trump and Grassley have handled it the best way they possibly can. The only thing they can do is let her come in and say whatever it is she wants to say. She's the only one that has anything to say about it because she doesn't remember any of the key details that would even facilitate any sort of investigation. The FBI has already investigated the man 6 times. They have documented his file with what she has said, and that's all they can do. There's not even a crime to investigate. If this had been reported at the time, according to what she said, there is nothing that would have been done about it at the time. There's no suggestion that any clothes were removed. No body parts were shown by either person. And how she wants to call it an attempted rape when it's 2 teenagers supposedly intoxicated at a party, and it sounds like, you know, I don't even believe it was Kavanaugh, but if we assume arguendo what she said, it still amounted to next to nothing and wouldn't have been prosecuted at the time if she had run out and reported it. I mean, I think something happened to her when she was a teenager that scared her and bothered her, but it doesn't amount to a crime of any kind. And, most people, I don't think, would have said anything about 2 teenagers, making out a little bit. And it's certainly not anything within the FBI's jurisdiction.
So why the call for the FBI to investigate? Why doesn't she just come and tell her story?
Oh, it's just pure delay. That's all it is. I mean, this whole thing, Feinstein's handling of the whole incident belies any validity or seriousness to it at all. It's a transparently ridiculous political to try and smear a good man, a obviously good man. Everybody except this Dr. Ford has attested to his outstanding character and attitude toward women and the way he's treated women all his life. And she's just off the rails and letting herself be used in a transparent political play to try to stall and or derail his nomination to the Supreme Court. I mean, another point I made was who on earth could withstand this kind of scrutiny? There are very few people that didn't have something in their teenage years that somebody could say they did wrong.
So here's my
question.
question.
On top of that, let's remember the Congressional Slush Fund, pursuant to which Congress people have used taxpayer money to pay to silence allegations of their sexual misconduct.
Yeah, right.
I want to see all the names of Congress people for whom funds were paid, and I want to know the allegations against them and how much was paid.
Well, that hasn't come out either. Sidney, I just got to ask you this, because I'm a fan of Declassify. I like her a lot. Everybody knows that. I always cut her the most slack of anybody, her and Mark Warner. But let me just ask you this. So she's got this information, and she meets with Kavanaugh privately in her office for a couple hours. It never comes up. She goes to the hearings. Everybody knows that she's under pressure from the progressives in California to react to them. It never comes up. She never asked the question. She could have whipped the letter out of her folder and said, let me read you this. What do you think of this? Answer it. She never did that, never talked to him in private. then pops it public 4 days before the vote in the Judiciary Committee. Don't you find that odd, or is it just me?
Oh, it was terrible. She was laying behind the log, waiting to take a shot at the last possible minute.
In order to do what? Stall it, right?
To stall it.
Because if the objective...
They want to keep him off the bench any way they can. And they're willing to stoop to any low to do it.
That's the way
this is the whole new modus operandi of the Democratic Party. And they're all doing it.
It seems to me if she wanted to get to the truth, she would have brought this out immediately and aired it and wanted to get to the truth.
She knows there's nothing there.
Well, that's the other thing. There's only two explanations here. One is she really gamed this out. She gamed it like a chess game. She gamed it out and said, I'll pop it the weekend before the Judiciary Committee hearing in order to derail it and stall again, right? That would be the gamesmanship. That's number one. And, is that possible? Sure. She's Democrat partisan. Is it possible? I would hate to think it is. The other possibility, though, is that she never really believed it. And she didn't want to get involved in it because she looked at it. She, she looked at his file, and there's no other corroboration. There's no witnesses. There's nobody there. He has no history of this. And she didn't believe it. And she didn't want to get involved in it, in something that she just didn't believe. She, as a person, she doubted it. There was doubt there. There's
she
only
actually
two
indicated that yesterday.
Yes.
That she wasn't, she was wondering if any of it was true.
She was not convinced, because those are the only two rational explanations for her waiting. She either gamed it out for maximum partisan advantage, which is the opposite of her MO. If you look at her history, she's passionate about her issues, but she doesn't behave this way. So that is so counter to Feinstein's tenure in the Senate. And I don't want to believe that because I like her. I just don't want to believe that. But it's possible. The other one is she just didn't think it was credible. If I had to bet, I think it's what I just said, and she kind of indicated that on Tuesday. That she
or it's both. Or she is how many years old now? And not really herself. She's got to be, I think this year in particular, she showed some signs of dementia. The whole releasing the transcript thing from I forgot whose testimony it was now.
Right, yeah.
Glenn Simpson's or somebody's. She's just not herself.
Yeah. That could be it. You hate to see that happen. I can't comment on that, but we'll see. Either way, I think the stalling it for an FBI investigation has turned it from let's hear what the woman has to say and we feel bad for her pain and whatever, to it looks to me now like it's just a partisan ploy in order to discredit Kavanaugh. That's why I don't think her lawyer should have done that. I think she should have come on Monday. She should come. She should tell her story, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. Sidney Powell, we're out of time. Go to licensetolie.com. What's your Twitter handle again?
At Sidney Powell, the number 1.
At Sidney Powell, the number 1. Sidney Powell, thanks for being with us. Always enjoy having you on. And remember, it was Sidney Powell who predicted this was going to happen months ago. So once again, she's the most brilliant of all the guests we have on judicial topics. Absolute brilliance. Thanks for being with us.